Hi there! This is a catch-up video on leaks for the House of the Dragon Season 3 finale, which spy photos have confirmed months ago is the first Battle of Tumbleton. But in this, I'm going over confirmed leaks that 3 characters will be present at it that were not in the books. Daemon Targaryen, Corlys Velaryon, and even Gwayne Hightower. Now, the reason I didn't get to this is it came out just as filming wrapped, and that was late September. I was already preparing to go to New York Comic-Con for the big Dunk and Egg launch panel they had there, and then we were in Dunk and Egg mode. But we have known this months ago, that back in the summer, we had a lot of high-quality exterior spy footage. Not just photos, footage, confirming that this is first Tumbleton, and that Daemon is there. It made a report about, well, is it okay to have Daemon there treating with the Hightowers in episode 4, and then at this, well, a complaint was he didn't have enough to do last season, so let's see how it turns out. So on the one hand, we have a lot of confirmation for this. On the other hand, it's confirmation of changes. But just to stress, because even after the second teaser, I saw clickbaiters going, oh, well, maybe we don't know. Maybe this could be the battle above the God's Eye, the climactic battle between Daemon on Caraxes and Aemon on Vhagar. It's just, no. Even casually, if you were paying any attention to just the community on Twitter and stuff, that there were a ton of publicly reported on spy photos. Even news sites were reporting on the spy photos. The finale is first Tumbleton. And Daemon is in it, which means it is physically impossible for him to be in a different battle in the same episode. It's just bad memories of clickbaiters, the really hardcore ones with the red circles and the arrows and stuff, were back in Season 2 filming, trying to hype people that Battle Above the God's Eye was going to be in the Season 2 finale because they wanted attention. And you saw how they turned out, but it's sort of like someone for Game of Thrones Season 1 trying to hype the Red Wedding might happen at the end of Season 1. No, you're skipping to character deaths that happen multiple seasons from now. In every way we could confirm this with glorious spy footage. There is footage with comprehensible audio of Daemon giving a pre-war speech to his army, that we know Daemon is there. There is zero chance we're getting Battle Above the God's Eye this season, nor do we want it to be. The other thing that clickbaiters don't care about is one of our concerns is rushing it because there's a lower episode count. We want them to, generally seems like a good stopping point. I'm not really too concerned about this. I am concerned a little for Season 4. They kick the can down the road, but we know this is first Tumbleton. I already talked about Daemon being there. Whatever the case, I haven't made a standalone video before talking about we also confirmed from spy photos that Corlys is there. I might have mentioned it once or twice. One of the last spy photos we got is noticing, wait a minute, that's Corlys Velaryon very clearly at the set for first Tumbleton. And the reason I'm bringing this up is now in the second teaser trailer, you actually see Corlys talking to Daemon, and the architecture, the buildings behind him, is blatantly the exterior sets they built for Tumbleton. Corlys never goes to Tumbleton either. I actually think it arguably makes more sense to send him than Daemon, though, because, he doesn't have a dragon, and Corlys is Rhaenyra's Hand of the Queen. And apparently a thing across the season is there are multiple failed attempts to parley with the Hightowers. The earlier Daemon is trying to parley with them, he gets the imposter Daeron and all that, but once again they're trying to negotiate with them, and there's a back and forth of this, and it goes in written correspondence in the book that, okay, send face-to-face negotiators for the sake of television to communicate it better, I get that. So, okay, it makes sense that if they were trying to negotiate, Corlys would be there, and he is Hand of the Queen, and Tumbleton is relatively near King's Landing, so it's not like it's a physical limitation on him being there. But there is an entirely new leak which I wasn't able to report on at the time. But this came out like October, so I wasn't able to report on it. I was doing Dunk and Egg stuff. We knew about Corlys and everything. I've mentioned it once or twice. And this other leak sort of ties it all together. This other leak claims that Gwayne Hightower is not only still alive by the end of the season, he is also present at Tumbleton, in the Black's army camp as a prisoner. Now, unlike Corlys, we do not have spy photos to back it up, but it came from other set spies who were reliable before. And this is also a change from the book, because Gwayne stayed in King's Landing the entire time as the new commander of the City Watch after the Greens took over. But secretly, most of the Gold Cloaks were still loyal to Daemon. So when Rhaenyra and Daemon launch a surprise attack on the city after luring Aemond away to Harrenhal with most of his army, the City Watch mutinies en masse, throws open most of the city gates. First thing they do is seize the handful of new officers the Hightowers appointed over them, including Gwayne, and Gwayne is summarily executed. That's kind of a change for Book-Gwayne, but in the TV show, we already saw at the end of Season 2. This shouldn't be a giant revelation, guys. End of Season 2, we saw that Gwayne is not staying in King's Landing anymore. That he's on the way to Harrenhal with Criston Cole and Aemond. So you already knew that this was going to go in a different direction. That's why I think this is plausible and probably a reliable leak. And again, now, in the new second teaser, you actually see shots of Gwayne in Criston's army as they're marching around desperately trying to get back south. Though we would have known this already just from the Season 2 finale. He's not in King's Landing. Not much of a surprising change, but according to the leaks, Gwayne stays with Criston Cole and his army as they desperately try to retreat south, but get caught up in the Butcher's Ball, this big ambush. As in the book, Criston Cole is killed in the Butcher's Ball, which should be in episode 6. But Gwayne will be one of a handful of prisoners that they take alive. Which actually does make sense, that he's a valuable political hostage. More valuable than Criston, if you think about it, that he is Alicent's brother, he is a first cousin to Ormund Hightower. And compare that to Criston, who, isn't from a notable family. He has no other actual family. He's just on the small council. And more importantly, B, many people directly blame him for starting the war. For his romantic affairs with Rhaenyra, for starting the coup, for he's publicly placed the crown on Aegon's head. Versus Gwayne is just, a son following orders from his family. He's just a guy doing his job. So people blame Criston in a way they don't blame Gwayne for anything, as much as they do anyone else. And normally you do take there's a line from Tyrion in the book where that's the way of things. The lords get taken hostage and ransomed. The peasant levies get executed. That's so okay. You take Gwayne hostage. I can see that. Executing Criston on the spot was more of an exception, that they don't let him do trial by combat. They just pick him off with arrows at the start of the battle. So, okay, I can see why if Gwayne was there, they'd go, we should take him alive, he's a useful hostage. As in the book, after the Butcher's Ball, what's left of the Riverlander Winter Wolves army then goes to Tumbleton. So if they're the guys who took Gwayne hostage, okay, it makes sense that when Roderick Dustin comes to Tumbleton, he brings Gwayne Hightower in chains with him. So the way it all comes together is that once the Hightower army with Ormund and Daemon is at Tumbleton, Daemon and Corlys go to Tumbleton to treat with him, and when they get to the army camp, there's Roderick, there's Black Aly, and there's Gwayne, and they all meet. We have no spy photos of this. It seems plausible and came from reliable sources, who went on to claim that at the point when Daemon realizes that his nephew tricked him, that he was given a fake Daeron as a hostage back in episode 4, and that the real Daeron captured Tumbleton with his dragon Targaryen without him, and it's because he got tricked. The leak claims that back in the Black's army camp, Daemon is so enraged to realize he got fooled that he nearly strangles Gwayne to death. Like the messenger in Season 1, he was bashing him. In this case, he's strangling him out of his mind with rage, to the point that multiple men have to pry him off of Gwayne. Gwayne doesn't die. He nearly dies. He almost strangles him to death. They have to pull him off. I really hope they keep paralleling him with Aemon that way, that Aemon, we really hope, when he flies into a rage at Harrenhal, killing the Strongs, it'll parallel how Daemon did that in Season 1 and how he'll do this in the final episode to Gwayne. Just completely losing it, attack the messenger, all of that. The final part of the leak, and this is probably the biggest change, is that apparently due to the betrayal of Hugh and Ulf, as in the book, somehow through the process of the Blacks losing the battle, because Corlys is there, he ends up getting captured. That the Greens manage to both capture Corlys and free Gwayne. So Gwayne starts out as a prisoner in the Blacks' camp at the beginning of the episode when Corlys arrives, but then their situation reverses, and now Corlys is Gwayne's prisoner of the Hightowers overall, I mean. This is a change, but I wouldn't say it's entirely ungrounded. That I'm not trying to be the Pollyanna here, that on paper I can see the sense behind this. It'll be a different question whether they can execute it well or not, but long story short, Corlys actually does get captured by the Greens much later in the war and under entirely different circumstances. So they're condensing that part with, well, this is when he's their captive and he was arguing for negotiating the end of the war anyway. I think they're making a big condensation. And I'm just saying, on paper, this could work, but I'll have to see it. Because there's other things I thought were great ideas that turned out bad, and some things I thought were bad that turned out good. So I'm just withholding that. But I'm not really concerned about Corlys, I'm concerned about Gwayne. But then I realize I'm okay with this because thinking on it, well, two things. First, TV-Gwayne was never exactly the book character. Book-Gwayne is a minor character. I mean, he only appears in basically one scene, the scene he dies in. He has no real interaction with other family members or dialogue with Alicent or anything. None of the scenes in Season 2 with Gwayne are from the book. When he's talking to Criston, when he's having these heart-to-hearts with Alicent, I mean, that great scene in Episode 6, where they're talking about, oh, you grew up motherless, and then you were the favorite, and what's Daemon like? That is a great scene with great dialogue and very well performed. Has no basis in the book at all. And on top of that, I mean, since Season 1, there are slight differences. That in the book, Gwayne is actually stated to be Otto's youngest son. They never even say how many sons he has or what their names are, just they say Gwayne is the youngest, well, there must be other ones. TV show back in Season 1, they already said Gwayne, they introduced him to Turney as, and here's Gwayne, Otto's eldest son. So he was never a one-for-one with his book counterpart. His book counterpart is a minor character, and it's actually pretty interesting that they did it this way. And Otto has other sons who do other things. There's a lot of other Hightower cousins in the book, which I never thought would appear in a TV show. They need to be condensed, and I understand that. But the first thing is he was never really the book character to begin with. Oh, he's changed from the book. That isn't automatically bad. It's an outline. The second of two things is what I suspect they're going to do is condense TV-Gwayne with Book-Hobert Hightower in the book. Not Otto's brother Hobert that we saw in Season 1. He didn't have a name in the book. The TV version, they named him after this minor cousin that does appear in the text. In the text, they say there's this minor cousin Hobert from, not even a first cousin, he's from a minor branch of the family. He's this stout 60-year-old man, lesser branch of the family. He's just in charge of managing the baggage train, the supply carts in the back of the army. He's not an important person. In short, at a key point, Hobert sacrifices himself to kill an enemy. That Hobert offers poisoned wine, and his enemy waits to see if he'll drink it first. So he bravely drinks the poisoned wine to trick his enemy into also drinking it, sacrificing himself to take out a big threat to the Hightowers. That is my pure speculation, though. That's not part of the leak. And if we did get that, that'll be like in season 4. It's just, I'm starting to think that they're going to combine him with Book-Hobert because they're not going to introduce another character. In terms of other cousins and stuff, I mean, like, in the book, the best sword the Hightowers had was their other cousin, Brynden Hightower. We're not going to get him either. They're probably going to condense most of what he does with Jon Roxton. But okay, in terms of economy of characters for a TV show, I can see how a reasonable person would go, let's kind of invent this Gwayne character, have him have some heart-to-hearts with Alicent, build him up, and then work him into the Reach subplot as doing what Hobart ultimately did. So none of this really upsets me or anything. It's a good idea on paper. It might end up being poorly executed. But we only really complain about invented stuff when it's bad. Noah was complaining at the inventions to Viserys in season 1 because they were good. I think these changes will be for the better, as far as I can tell right now. What'll they lead to, I'm not exactly sure, but we'll have to see and can only judge after we watch season 3 how Tumbleton plays out.